to a green economy that is resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. And I would like to see the tax regime also being greened. Let's green our tax regime and then invest in those areas that actually make our economy compliant to climate change. I want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think that is very impressive. That was a message eriawo bwembanga nji summarize nze. Bwe tuba tutegedde ekiri mu budget. Naffe tuyige okuteeka abantu baffe abakozesa ssente zino ku nni. Example bagituwadde wano nti KCCA bagiwa billion 180 ezigwamu ku nguudo. Naye do we follow up? Do we demand? Lwaki tukyalina potholes? So money is collected, money is allocated, but is it used for the purposes it is intended to? Lwaki tuli wano nti tweyongera okuyiga wa ne ki kye tulina okukola okuba nti nno tuganyulwa mu budget y'eggwanga. Lastly, Mr. Julius Mukunda, the CS bag. Uganda Revenue Authority is implementing a number of measures. I think Sarah talked about, the CG has talked about IFRIS, DTS, and these are all to boost revenue collection, especially in our domestic revenue mobilization strategy. So we want to increase our tax to GDP ratio. Over the next 5 years, probably we can hit the 18%. However, we seem still to be moving very slowly. If you look at VAT, where we're talking about we have technology in IFRIS, it is still not our best performing tax anyway. But in other countries, we have seen it perform well. So in spite of the efforts we are putting, or what you have had, what do you think is failing us? What do you think we need to be paying attention to, especially as URA and the Ministry of Finance? Julius.
Thank you so much. How can we do better? I think all of us are looking forward to, to collect more money, be less dependent on donors. And I was looking at the last 5 years how URA has been collecting. 2017, 18, you collected 14.4 trillion. You went 16, you went to 19, you went 21. Now we are on 25. And I think the milestone has really been, splendid. It has been good, doing better. But as you see is that, as the Commissioner told us, that there has been, in terms of growth of the absolute numbers, it has been at around 2.5, almost every year. And now here Mr. Kagwa is telling us we want 4 trillion. I say Mr. Kagwa because he's the one who sets the targets. So how are we going to get these 4 trillion? I think that's the question. One is, for me, is we need to be very candid about who is paying the tax and how we should pay the tax. A border person is paying 20,000 annually. I was calculating if he's collecting 40,000 per day, he might make like 14 million in a year. But a person a trader who is transporting matoke on a weekly basis, a truck of matoke on a weekly basis, he's not in our taxation bracket. If I have a plantation of forest and I sell it and they pay me even in the forest, Mr. Kagwa, you won't find me in a taxation bracket. I'm not there. So we need to ask ourselves, who else is not in the taxation bracket? And how can they start paying? Agriculture contributes more than 24% of our GDP, but pays less than 1% of the taxes. And yet, we highly subsidize this sector. It is something really serious you need to think about if we want to expand. Otherwise, it still be me and you. We pay payee, you get out, you pay VAT, you move on, you pay sales tax until you die. So a question of candidly think about how or who is in the tax. The other one is how. And I think there are proposals here. If I bring a container, I've been bringing 4 containers, and now I'm only bringing one. Can you allow me to bring a second one? And I pay them later. Have that option for us to pay later as I'm selling out my products. I had also asked, if I know that my container is along the way coming, and I estimate I'm likely to pay tax of around 10 million, can they allow me to start paying until my container arrives? So that by the time the container arrives, I don't need to get all the 14 million at a go and pay it, but rather I know I'm remaining with a balance of 1 or 2, which might not be heavy. That's putting a face, a human face, to taxation. The other one, of course, was that crossing. I know crossing a business is really a fight between getting that revenue and the person who is not paying. Is there any way we can do it like the bankers? You have a debt, you are unable to pay it, and they bring an administrator for the business. The administrator is for two purposes. One, to ensure that you pay the debt, but also to make sure that the business stays on. Is it something that you really want to think about? We need to have a strong, coordinated approach in taxation policy. As of now, the gold traders are still refusing to pay tax. That's what I understand, simply because the rate was very high. The Minister of Energy wants to do it a different way. Minister of Finance, a different way. URA wants to collect the money. You remember when we had trucks of cargo at the trucks at the border because of COVID testing. They wanted to say, you know, you have to test COVID before you enter. And it caused a lot of jam at the border, simply because the coordination part of how we should be able to collect the money, or if you make a decision here, how it is likely to affect the other sector. We must have that coordinated approach. If you also recall, there were instances where a bill passed by Parliament would take like 3 or 4 months for the President to assent to it, simply because the level of consultation was not done adequately. So a strong coordination among government and citizens is very critical, and I'm glad that I am seeing now partnerships with the different government institutions to support URA to collect these taxes. Second last is on tax exemptions and also amnesty. And I think this is something I have been engaging on. This financial year, I'm told we are likely to lose 2.4 trillion in tax exemptions. But we know we can't run away from tax exemptions. But I'm glad that we are trying to make it even simpler. But there are certain things you can even simplify more, especially those who are engaged in clearing goods and services. I'm looking for a day when I can be able to clear my own goods and services, not going through the tax clearing agents, because that's an additional cost to doing business. I'm looking forward when I import either a fridge or a TV, whatever it is, I can be able to say, yes, I go and clear it and come out and come out with it, because all I need is to pay taxes. So I'm looking forward for that. So simplification of how we can be able to pay is quite very, very important. Otherwise, I thank you so much, and I think we look forward to collect more. Thank you.
Asante sana. Ladies and gentlemen, with the permission of the Commissioner General, if you allow, I wanted us to get our last panel here so that we just exhaust them so that we can get to the floor and get to the delicious lunch that has been prepared. Babo Obeza. So let us get through this. We are all going to be sorted when it comes to lunch. Thank you very much, sir. Let's give a hand clap to the panel as they go. I think they have done wonderfully well. I think ebyo okuyiga webiri and okuyiga tekukoma wano, but at least we get the pointers of where we can get information. Bano ba partners bafe batukolera bulungi nnyo, Basiyatini, Accord, bagoberera ensonga ate ne bazitanya mu bantu. CS Bag, our next one, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite
the children are going to school for free. roads have been constructed.
And
Madam
Christian,
abakyala tebakyazaalira mu mbeera mbi gedda.
We have electricity, businesses are being supported. Uganda Airlines ekomyewo. I'm proud to be Ugandan.
We celebrate you,
Oh, we celebrate you.
taxpayers of Uganda. We appreciate you,
We appreciate you.
Uganda together. Mukoze omulimo.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second last session before we go to the plenary. There are a number of questions that have come through the solido.com, and we'll have to engineer a way of how to exhaust them. There are many, but many of them are targeted to URA. So we can have a mechanism of how we can respond to them and also get them to you if they can't be addressed here. I would like to begin with Mr. Abel Kagumire. He's the Commissioner for Customs. He's charged with collecting our international tax, so custom duties and so on. Mr. Abel, the government's objective is to promote import substitution, and that is, I think, clear even within the budget, and also to promote the policy of Bubu. So what changes have been implemented in the ESC, the East African Community, to support this that we need to be aware of? Are there opportunities for our business people here that they should know, so that when we're moving together, tunoonya nkulaakulana? So bwe tuba twogera ku Bubu, twogera ku import substitution, ffe tugwawa, abo business obutono, and so on. Could you address your thoughts to that?
Thank you. Good afternoon, our dear taxpayers. And I want to thank you for paying taxes. And thank you for partnering with us and supporting URA in this drive for revenue collection. And thank you for coming. When I look at what is happening on the international trade taxes and what is happening in the region, in line with the government policy on import substitution, the import taxes keep reducing, and I see a lot of focus now on export promotion. Where we used not to export a lot, I'm seeing increased exports going through our borders and less imports. Even when you look at this budget, most of the amendments look towards supporting the local manufacturers. So the items which are locally produced, which are produced in Uganda, are protected at national level and at EAC level. If you look at that book, there is no proposed change that is going to. It is about protection of the local industries. At the EAC level now, you know, we have the highest band of 35%. It used to be 25%. We used to have 0%, we have 10%, we have 25%, now we have 35%. And the 35% is trying to say, if you are bringing ketchup from America, we have enough tomatoes in Uganda. So if you want to bring ketchup, pay at 35%, and the Ugandans will enjoy. If you're bringing tires from Spain and Italy, pay at 35%, because Kapeka and others are producing them in Uganda. If you want that standard which is of quality, pay at 35%. So that's how I've seen the budget and the amendments, the way they have been structured, to protect our local manufacturers. Now, there are products which we produce in plenty: meat, milk, especially foodstuffs. Now, those ones have been shifted to what they call a sensitive list. Sensitive list is that even if we don't import, we can survive without you importing them. So they put them on the sensitive list. Like we used to, in the past, you have cigarettes. In the past, you have powdered milk. Now they have put them again in the amendment. So I think, through your question, this budget looks at how do we fast-track import substitution. So we look forward now to supporting the local manufacturers to do a lot of production. The budget talks of industrial parks. The industrial parks that we started with were 1 or 2. Kapeka alone now has 18. Mbale Industrial Park is talking of 24 factories coming up. And they manufacture most of the goods that my brothers from Kasita were picking from China, from Dubai. Now, I think that is growth. And that's where we are heading. So it is at national level, it's at East African level. Most of these have been harmonized and looked at. Things to do with medical supplies, things to do with starches. I saw my colleague talk about the environment. There is a focus again in the budget, the amendments talking about electric cars and supporting importation of electric cars. So there have been remission of duty, even on motorcycles. So that's where we are going to have a green economy. That one, we are looking forward that importation of these cars which emit fumes will stop at one time. So I think in line with the way I see this budget and the amendments going, we are going to grow more of our exports by encouraging local production. So customs, you are saying, what are you going to do? I'm going to facilitate you faster. At customs URA, we are going to do a facilitation faster. You hit the port of Mombasa, you'll find the officer there. You hit the port of Dar es Salaam, you'll find the officer there to clear you. And you come straight, pay your taxes at the port. You don't have to first come. And you go to your shop. If you are worried of your goods being stolen along the transit, we have a system called the Regional Electronic Cargo Tracking System, shared by all the East African countries. And they read what you are doing. And we monitor your cargo as it comes. If you reach the border, Malaba and Busia and the others, you have a scanner. You don't have to open the box. And you go through, we will see the picture and we see what you have put in that box. And we'll be able to tell that we have not concealed anything. That's where we are going. So customs will be facilitating you to bring these raw materials quickly to the factory, bring the intermediate goods quickly to the factory. If you are bringing finished products that we don't produce here, we will clear them very fast, and we make sure that we are all comfortable. That's what I see on the international space of international trade taxes. As I sit at the borders now, I used to clear only empty trucks going through our borders about 10 years ago. Now, about 40% of the trucks that go are loaded. Recently, Commissioner General had to intervene in a case where the export trucks were congesting Malaba and Busia. Even the MPs of that place were saying our town is crowded with loaded exports. They were used to empty trucks. That's a sign that the policy is working. So we have to divert now to another route called Ruahaha, 30 kilometers from Tororo, so that we manage the congestion of exports going through Kenya to the ports. And for me, that's a sign that government is thinking in the right direction. Yes, we may lose out on import duties, but we'll gain on the domestic taxes. I submit.
Thank you very much, Abel. Madam Jen, Executive Director Siatini, if Abel is doing a good job facilitating trade, especially within our region, we are aware that April 2003, Uganda achieved a trade surplus of about $1 billion within the East African Community Trading Partners, so at the regional level. However, we recorded a bilateral trade deficit with Tanzania in the same period. So if we are going to get our goods more out there, and we need to, and Kagumeri is facilitating us, what are we going to do to enhance trade and increase our exports? If you could address yourself, how would you guide businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, to take advantage of this? Madam Jane.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, fellow taxpayers, because I know everybody here in this room pays taxes. Just allow me 1 minute to say thank you to government, to Ministry of Finance, to URA for this partnership. I remember way back, there was no partnership, there was no discussion. The taxes you just hear on the radio, this is that, and either you pay or you pay, no alternatives. So I think for me this partnership has also gone a long way to strengthen the social contract between the citizens and government, and also ownership. Again, also from Mr. Kagumire's submission, when you look at the taxes here, the way they have been explained, it goes beyond revenue, and it makes tax a tool to develop our country, to promote industrialization, to promote backward and forward linkages between agriculture and industry. So I congratulate URA and government on all those issues. Regarding the issue of regional trade, the ESC, the East African trade, as you have pointed out, it's an important trade for us as Uganda. And we have been registering a surplus, a net surplus, and it's really important. So how do we make it stronger? Because regional trade, the ESC trade, that's the trade where we are trading agricultural goods like maize, beans, but also value-added products, soap, detergents, cooking oil, which is important for growing our economy and providing jobs. I tell people that you can't take value-added products to Europe. You're not going to take oil to Europe or plastics. So our regional trade is really important. So how do we strengthen it further? One is the issue of quantities, but also quality. Quality is really important. Producing and trading standard goods. I won't go into the maize saga with Sudan and Kenya, but standards are very important. And in the budget, UNBS was given around 61 billion, and we are saying that money is not enough. If we are to trade competitively, put our products in the market, we need more resources towards UNBS. Another issue which we need to look at is the issue of addressing NTBs. That means the Ministry of Trade, the non-tariff barriers, because one time you hear Kenya saying, don't bring your milk tomorrow, don't bring that eggs. And what we are asking the ESC, the East African Secretariat, is to strengthen the institutions, because trade is about money. If we agree that I'm bringing my milk, tomorrow you say out of the blue, don't bring it. Those are losses. And we are saying in Arusha, there has to be a strong dispute settlement mechanism. You know, somebody has to pay when you say don't bring your milk. Another issue is the issue of infrastructure. The infrastructure, taking things by road is not really a good trade, and it's good that in our budget, the SGR rail is there. Another issue as a region, we should look at regional value chains. You know? Let us coordinate our trade. I can give an example. Already we have an East African pharmaceutical strategy. You know, we can be able to produce our pharmaceuticals, we can be able to produce our vaccines. As a country, Uganda, we can never produce our own vaccines. We have to do it as a region. And regional value chains will help us to look at our competitive advantages, to pull our resources together, but also to stop the competition. There is a lot of competition, unhealthy competition in the region. So we need to have those regional value chains. We need to implement joint strategies. For example, we have the East African investment treaty as East Africa, so that we market our region as one investment investment region. Another issue Mr. Kagomire has pointed out, Kenya is also negotiating a trade agreement with the US, you know, and you say, but we are together. We are in a region, we have to pull our products together and be able to sell as a region. Lastly, I think it's important to have a political will. Some leaders in the region are not yet grounded when it comes to the regional integration project. You know, that's why you see borders being closed. That isn't really good. And we are looking at other markets, you know, because Uganda, we don't lack markets for our produce. We have the regional market, SADC, COMESA, that market is there. Government signed a tripartite agreement to bring East Africa, COMESA and SADC together. Government is already almost concluding the Continental Free Trade Area. That market is also out there. But what I wanted to tell government, to request government, that in the quest for markets and production, you don't first produce and then look for the market, you know? That's when you produce a big pineapple and they say, the pineapple is too big. That's what, you know, so we need to start to understand what market we want to take our products to. Because trade is about a specific product and a specific market. What a European market wants is not what we are taking to Kenya, you know. So let us up our game, because the products, we have them, but they are not the right products for those markets, you know. And for me, I believe if we can be able to work on our trade, our production, our industries, you won't have a problem collecting taxes. Because taxes are, when an economy is booming, you know, there is no reason why we can't be able to get taxes. But again, when I look at the budget, this year's budget, budget to agro-industrialization is still very minimal. At 1.8 trillion, that money is very little, because you are combining agriculture, the entire MAIF, agriculture, fisheries, and all that. You combine it with trade, you combine it with industry, you combine it with cooperative, and you give it 1.8 trillion. Those of you who did mathematics, you can do the division, and you see how much is going to those ministries. So we need to up the game. Lastly, I want to talk about the PDM. PDM, it's good to take money to the people, but that money has to be put into the productive sector so that people can be able to produce, people can be able to sell, you know. So across that entire value chain, the entire value chain has to be addressed. So if you give money to people who have never received money, you know, there are people who need charity or to need to be employed somewhere, you know. So let us put our money, our little money, where we know it's going to generate resources. And that's why I'm saying PDM money should be linked to production, to trade, to industry, or else that money is going to be kubulira muze nyanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Jane Oyenankulu w'ekitongole kya Siatini, eyo kiri South and Eastern Trade Information Negotiation Institute, and I think message eri loud and clear. Badde nsaba tusembyeyo Madam Christine okuva mu Uganda Debt Network. As of December last year, 2022, Uganda's public debt was recorded at about over 80 trillion. How can we enhance productivity from the funds we are borrowing so that probably they are not paying administrative costs, but they will later contribute to generation of more taxes and the welfare of the country? Madam Christine.
Thank you very much. Good evening, fellow taxpayers and participants. I must first and foremost note that there's increased interest of the citizens in matters of debt compared to a few years back, and that is very good. I must also commend the Ministry of Finance that they always come out and facilitate discussion around the issues of debt. Having said that, I also must note that with debt, country can utilize the debt that they acquire to either propel them to economic transformation, growth and development, but if it is poorly managed, it can have disastrous consequences on an economy. And so, as we acquire this debt, first and foremost, as government, our recommendation is, do we need the loan in the first place? Can we do a feasibility study? Is this project going to be successful financially, for example, environmentally? Is it friendly? Is it going to succeed economically? And then having done that feasibility study, we then go on to acquire the loan. If we are going to acquire the loan, in most instances, we have counterpart funding on the part of government. Before you bring these resources, are we ready with our counterpart funding? Otherwise, if we get this loan, the debt, and then we are not ready with the counterpart funding, trust me, the monies are going to sit, and then the citizen, you and me, will keep paying interest on this loan which is not performing. So as we acquire this loan, let us as Ugandan government be sure that we have the counterpart funding so that we are able to move these projects timely, quite on time. But also most importantly, as we want to, put out these loans, start these projects, can we bring the beneficiaries on board right at the beginning? If we intend to acquire a loan, can we be transparent? Can we share information of this loan? What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve, and where? Can we provide timely, but also all the relevant information to the citizen and the beneficiary so that they are able to do the monitoring and be able to identify any red flags? For example, if it is a project and you have involved the beneficiaries right at the start, if you have shared the information and then there is a problem at some stage, they will raise the red flags. But most importantly, what do you do at that point? If they have raised the red flags and you do not act, then we have problems. So if red flags are raised, we need to see us address those at that point so that we are able to move these projects to successful completion. And you mentioned, you asked, how do we ensure that these projects generate the revenues that we are able to pay back? You mentioned the SGR, yes. We also want, if government is going to reap in terms of taxes, generating taxes. We want to see how the private sector is supported. For example, reduce the cost of doing business. The SGR, if completed, will help with reducing the cost of maybe transporting inputs for the private sector, but also the cost of exporting. If I have my finished products, I can be able to easily export both at the regional level, but also to the global markets. And then I will make profits, which can then be taxed to generate more revenues. But also beyond that, we want to see, and we want to applaud government, because we have seen that in the next financial year, there's going to be less domestic borrowing, which is a good thing, because this releases some space for the private sector to also be able to access some credit, affordable credit, to be able to run their businesses that can then be taxed. But we are also concerned that out of a bill of about 7.9 trillion domestic arrears, government is going to be able to pay only 200 billion, about 200 billion. And this is not very good for our private sector, because if you're not going to pay me what you owe me, then how do you expect me to run my business, to generate the profits or the money that you expect to tax? So we want to encourage government that even as you want to tax the private sector, if you want to generate the revenues, then create the environment that is going to help you with that. And we usually use the analogy of a cow. You feed the cow if you want to milk and get as much benefit from it as possible. So if you do not support the private sector, they will not be able to thrive, and therefore enable you to collect enough taxes. But finally, I also would want to note that as we try to increase the revenues for the country, I know the Ministry of Finance has developed a revenue mobilization strategy, 2019-20 to 23-24. But I also want to encourage them. They are here. I know they will respond. I do not know to what extent we have supported our various local governments at their levels to align their various mobilization strategies to the national mobilization strategy. This is very important, especially if we are looking at increasing our revenues. Thank you very much. I think that is all I beg to submit.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, another hand clap for our panel. Okwewola si kibi bw'obanga osobola okusasula ate ng'essente oziteeka mu ebyo ebinaasobola okutumbula bizinesi. Ekirungi nti gavumenti ya Uganda ebadde tennalemwangako kusasula mabanja, naye nabo bagamba ba Uganda Debt Network nti bw'obanga olina ebbanja ddene naawe olina kusasula kineneko. So sustainability.
We celebrate you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Mukoze omulimo mwebale kusasula tusime mwebale nnyo.
Thank you for paying your taxes. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Okwanukula ensonga tulabe nti nno tutaanya buli kimu ekikwatagana ku bantu. Olwokuba nti chairman omukono gwe guli waggulu kinkakatako okugamba nti yajja okusooka omwami number 2, so ngenda bawa bwe namba bwe nagamba number 1 number 2 awo nga tugenda mbadde njagala nzireko emabega eno nfuneko n'abantu ab'emabega eno. Waliwo omwami mu saati eya white, gwe number 3. Tetulinayo omukyala mabega eno? Okay, omukyala mu green number 4, omwami number 5 mu checked. Mbadde nsaba tukkirize tutambule bwe tutyo, osanga ekibuuzo kyo kiyinza okuyitira omwo tulabe bwe tugenda. Bw'oba olina omuntu ali specific gweyagala okubuuza ekibuuzo omwogera n'aba nga yeetegeka bulungi. Chairman Sebo, akazindalo kako.
Thank you, Haji Bossa. My name is Dr. Musoke Thaddeus Nagenda. I want to thank the panelists. Njagala okwebaza nnyo baganda baffe abatuteesereza obulungi. Mwannyinaze wa Siantin n'abalala bonna bateeseza ddala ensonga gye nsuubira nti nnungi nnyo. Njagala okwebaza URA ne Ministry ya Finance olw'eno enteekateeka ennungi ne mukulu kaggwa ne ttiimu yo ssebo omulimu gwe mukola. Ssebo tusobola gubuusa bwaso. Konsandi yange ntono nnyo badde ntunuulira akatabo kano. Nsuubira ffenna akatabo kano tukafunyeeko. URA ebadde tukola omulimu omunene ng'obutabo buno ebutwanguyiza okubugabira abasuubuzi kubanga tutegeera emisolo. Naye ngenze okulaba nga ndaba olulimi lw'omusolo gusukkamu nnyo, simanyi baganda bange abali eyo we mukiraba. Naye tusaba nga bakola omulimu obunene nga ffe abakulembeze mu busuubuzi bwe tusomesa compliance n'okuwagira enteekateeka eziwagira budget. Mukulu Bossa ne Commissioner General olulimi lugondezebwemu. Mulimu kapingi kati omusuubuzi wange owa wansi wali tajja kusobola kubitegeera. Nsuubira ekyo kijja kutukola bulungi. Kakati mulimu ensonga endala kendabyemu wano ndowooza tujja kulaba tujja ssebe wuwo. Waliwo we tubadde tugamba nti nafayirinze kubanga mukadde kano tubadde tusaba nnyo abantu ddala abasuubuzi abali wano obutaggwa mu penalite za URA kwe kufayiringa mangu okulaga bizinensi yo nga bwetambudde. Naye waliwo kendabyemu mwami Kaggwa tukusaba tujja kusumbuwa gwe waffe okugamba nti singa nfayirinze wali akalala we bampitira nti kati sebo tukutaddeko audit nga sikirizibwa kuteekayo information ndala. Tuli bantu tusobya ne ba auditor basobya. Ndabaako kayinza okutunyiga. Twagala nnyo enkola eri flexible ey'obuntu. Nasanyuse nnyo Dr. Julius Bayi yakagyeyo we yabadde ateesa. Singa ekyo kikolebwa kijja kusobola kutuyambako. Akati ekintu ekyera kyemmanyi wano abantu abasinga muli basuubuzi oba bakola emirimu egy'enjawulo. Nina kembasaba kalikamu. Baliwo abafunye ku ssente za recovery. Awanike bwanisi bwati omukono. Waliwo? Madde manyize zikata naba kuzifunako. Akati tusaba Ministry ya Finance ensonga ya recovery bannayuganda baagala okusasula emisolo ne bizinesi zaagwa. Era tusaba tuteekewo enkola okulondoola bizinesi ezigudde ki ekizisudde tulabe bwe tuziyambako. Parish development model nnungi. Naye bano babadde tebadde kutandika kulowooza kusasula musolo. Nyenze abadde asasula n'engwa nina kuyambibwa ntya. Covid yatukuba banka zitwala ebintu. Nsuubira ekyo kijja kutukola bulungi. N'ensonga eyo kijja kubayamba okumanya nti ssente za recovery titunaba kuzifuna. Tulaba mugamba tulemeddwa okuzijjayo tuzaagala nnyo naye obukwakulizo bungi. Olinganga aweesezza omukono guno ate n'ogisaayo omukono guno. Bwebwo obwange siyenze muteesawo olunaku. Mwebale nnyo.
Number 2.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. My name is Fred. I come from Desire Beauty Products. We've had a lot of information, and one of the areas that we had wanted to get more, especially, is that there are already businesses that have been already affected. To our stakeholders, especially the regulator of URA, are there some ways that you can put on the psychological part of it into your departments, those who are psychologically affected because of the nature of the transactions, that can be at least assisted? What do I mean? If somebody came with some problems, other than now again touching more problems to that person, can there be an addressing way that a person really can comfort? In that regard, I expect that at least if their minds could be okay. Then secondly, on top of that one, is that we are seeing a trend whereby the third parties or third companies giving a challenge to the individual companies, and all the payments or all the blames are going to the first company. It has been rooted out by especially the tax clearing agents. You may find that as a company, I have complied into my information, but the other company, maybe because of other things, you find that has made me naughty to comply. That comes into also the training and other things. Then lastly, about it, is true that we are seeing greening. And by definition, we expect that most of the services that are given, we urge also to go into that trend of greening. We can green the taxes, we can green other setups. Lastly, but not the least, they have mentioned it. Let us try to understand what's happening to the business failing and what cost is put there to the business in order to recover so that they pay the obligations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My number 3, you put up your hand. Was a gentleman with the white shirt. Oh, he's over there. No, number 3. Please, let's have some decency here. Number 3 is at the back. It was very at the back, the gentleman with the white shirt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Twebaza bonna abawadde Dr. Thaddeus Webale. Nenja okusooka okwebaza Mama Safia Nalule yaleese ekibuuzo abantu abamu bayinza okuba bakibuuseeko mangu nti lwaki mu nsawo z'abantu temuli ssente. Ate omukulu Kaggwa naye n'agamba maybe yaleese akantu k'abalangira n'abambejja nti oli abaalumwa n'abuuza ki ekinnuma. Kaakati kyenja okubuuza omusolo gwe tuwa gwe mutuufu. Mbadde mbalamu ne bannange wano katono ne mbagamba neetunuulire nze omusuubuzi awe miliyoni 2 rent omwezi. Nembala nti mu bulumi obw'ekitalo nga sigaggawadde wabula nga bizinesi ngikwatidde mu kifo. Ndeka akameeza omutwalo gumu n'ekitundu. Nemmala nempa abakozi 2 omutwalo gumu n'ekitundu buli lunaku. Nentambuza siringi 6. Nembala nti omwezi nkozesa miliyoni 2 mu emitwalo 7 nga mu 5. Bwe ngabanyaamu ennaku 26 ze tukola mu mwezi, buli lunaku nteekwa okuba nga nfuna amagoba ga mitwalo 13 mu 14 mu siringi 34. Ate era nga sente ezo omuntu yenna nga otunda emiliyoni 1 okukka wansi ku ikonomi ya leero tosobola kufuna magoba ago. Kyokka mukyala Seeguya bw'ayigiriza engeri abantu gye bajja okusasulamu income tax, agamba nti bw'oba toweza miliyoni 10 omwaka tosasula. Miliyoni 10 kitegeeza nti olunaku oba olina okufuna ate correction emitwalo 3 olunaku. Kati weeyabaayi nti bw'obanga ow'emitwalo 13 olunaku amagoba nga tosobola kugaggawa okuwa omusolo, lwaki batujjako income tax nga tuba tetufunye tuli mu loss? Ate ne mwebuuza nti sente zinaabeera zitya mu nsawo. Tubadde tusaba Ministry ya Finance ekwatagana ne URA ng'omuntu ataweza miliyoni 5 total correction omwaka tawa income tax. Ekirala nti mwebale nnyo abakitegedde. Ekirala nti tusobola okukolawo endala ey'okuwa omusolo nti bwe tusheyalinga badeni tusobola okugikendeeza. Tuddire amafuta tugaseeko siringi 10 buli liita kuba buli muntu ali wano agakozesa. Emisolo gino egy'ekiddanyuma tugigobe. Then omuntu abeere ng'aleeta ebintu n'ateeka mu dduuka n'akola nga musololezeeko. Lwakuba nti bwe zinaawera ate nga muyiye engeri gye muziryamu Mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala.
Thank you very much. Okusinziira ku ngalo olabika okubye nnyo. Namba nnya waffe yabadde wano mukyala. Yabadde mukyala wano. Mukyala wano mu green. Wano mukyala mu green wano. Tweyanziza.
Mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala. Ngenda kwogera mu Luganda, silumanyi bulungi naye ngenda kwogeramu.
Sabula.
Mpulidde muyogedde lwa misolo. Kale nze ndi refugee. Nsasula musolo. Buli musolo gusasula, buli kye gavumenti yogera ku banansi nkikola. Naye nge kuliko kintu kizja mu kyalo. Ng'enyimirirako bagamba kino kya banansi. Kale nze refugee nfunirawa. Bilala tata yabiyogedde.
Thank you very much. Mkulukagwa refugee afunirawa. Ndawuza omwami wa checked yabadde number 5 wali.
Aji, salamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Namusaako ne chairman waffe mwami Nagenda Keno wakasiita. Nze nno nyina ebintu nga 3 bye njagala obbagamba. Bwe twali nze ndi transporter ate ndi musuubuzi. Twasookeranga Mutukula. Twavanga Tanzania nga tuve Mutukula, nga tuve Tanzania nga tujje Uganda ng'ebintu bingi. Ng'era abantu bawa omusolo oguli affordable ng'era ebintu bitundibwa. Saawa zino ebintu byonna bye tuyimportinga abantu baffe ababigula tebayina ssente. Naye ekibagaana okubeera ne ssente, gavumenti ekyagaanya okuteeka ssente emirimu gye bakola bafune ssente balyoke batuguleko. Kubanga kizibu nnyo okwongeza omusolo ate ng'abagenda okugula benfuna yaabwe teyeeyongera. Twalisookedde ku kimu ne tulyoka tukwata ekyokubiri naddala mu abakola budget. Nti bwe muba mukola budget mutunuulire nnyo main cash crop ya Uganda eriki. Mwessa ssente ate mwejja. Kubanga ensi yonna ebeerawo ng'eyina ekintu kyeteekamu ssente ate n'emala n'ekijjamu. Kizibu nnyo okujja mu kintu ssente nga tutaddeemu. Kubanga obuzibu bwe tulina bw'obuuza abantu nti ebyobulimi babitaddemu ssente mmeka mu bajeti eno ani akimanyi. Naye nga bw'otunuulira Uganda kwe yazimbibwa ku bya bulimi neddako ebyobusuubuzi. Ebyobusuubuzi mu ssaawa zino babitaddemu ssente mmeka. Ekirala, Ministry ya Finance erina okutuula awamu ne Ministry ya Energy. Ffe abasuubuzi eri gye tuli wansi amasannyalaze ge tusasula gali abnormal. Bw'ogattako amasannyalaze ogatteko kasasiro, ogatteko amazzi, ogatteko KCCA ng'ate b'oguza tebakyuka ebyenfuna byabwe tebyeyongera. Awo wali obuzibu. Kubanga ojja gamba nti oleese buli kimu, gavumenti ereese ebintu bingi ebijja abantu mu bwavu. Naye ekibuuzo kiri nti lwaki abantu tebava mu bwavu? Kubanga waliwo gaapu nnene wakati w'abalina n'abatalina. Gaapu eyo erina okusemberako bwe tuba twagala ensi abantu bagirabe nti ekulaakulana. Naye buli muntu gw'oyitira otambula eyo wansi abantu baavu nnyo kyekituufu. Buli muntu omuyitako nga munyiivu naye nga si gw'omunyiizizza. Naye nga talina ssente zagenda kuddayo na wakaawe. Ekirala, gavumenti eregulatinge ekkirize ekendeezeeko ku bamanerenda. Kubanga abantu abagenda bamanerenda okwewola ssente, manerenda takusomesa akuwola buwozi. Ne bwe zigaana akomawo bukomi n'atwala ebibyo. Naye abantu tubakoze tutya obbayingiza mu banka? Kuba banka yo bwekuwola esooka kusomesa ate eyinza n'okwongera oyitinga ettageti osobola ogisasula. Manerenda kyatakola. Ekyo kigenda mu Ministry ya Finance. Eri mmwe abasolooza omusolo wano wendi. Musolooza omusolo. Ne lwaki temugamba kube gumuguwa nti service delivery wansi teziriyo. Kubanga tewali nsonga lwaki nze nabadde jjo wansi eri gye nkolera ku BBC ng'abasajja aba URA bazze okunona returns. Naye wabaddewo olutalo lungi nnyo ku bantu be bajjako returns. Ng'abantu be bajjako returns si bamativu na kuwaayo ssente olw'ensonga service delivery tebaziraba. Bannange URA mwe betuwa ssente bwe muziwa mu bagambe nti abantu betugenda okujjamu ssente tusanga obuzibuzi bajjamu kubanga ssente bezikola tebaziraba. Awajja kubaawo enteekateeka ennuŋŋamu. Ne kati gwe bojja nonga nti leeta zino leeta ziri naye nempita ku luguudo okuva ewaffe Salaamu okujja e Kampala ziri kilomita 4 negenda olulabe. Abantu bwe bulumi bwe balina. Ekirala muteekeewo omukwano wakati wammwe n'abantu be muggyako omusolo. Ku mulembe gwa mukyala Kagina abantu basuubulanga nze ndudde mu busuubuzi kuba mwenzaaliddwa mwenkulidde nga tuyina enkola ennuŋŋamu. Ne kati waliwo enkola eyajja tewali kuwuliziganya mu bondi zonna. Ekirala nze benkuwase bwondeeta ebintu byange nekuwa parking list nongerekera kijja kitya ate nga mmaze okusasula nonkwata nti nsasudde omusolo mutono ng'ate gw'ogumpadde. Gw'ompadde omusolo nze siina woofiisi egereka gwogereka nze nkuleetedde ebintu byange. Lwaki tuli mu East African Community waliwo ekizibu ekibaddewo. Bannaffe abasuubula obuwunga baafuna ekizibu ne gavumenti ya Sudan nekwata obuwunga bwabwe. Bwe mala obukwata tebaafuna response yonna. Bannange ebintu ebimu ebyavuwazza abantu byebyo nti omuntu akuwadde ssente omusoloozezza ate atuuse okugenda okutikkula omukiiko emmotoka omugajjayo empapula agikuggyeyo omugamba ani yakoze bino kati obuuzaani. Nze sinze URA nze naleese ebyange onsolooze era oŋŋambye gw'oteekeddwa okusasula gwe guno. Waliwo aba URA ababeera e Mombasa kubanga e Mombasa nkoleddeyo emyaka 10 na kati nkyakolerayo emyaka 10 n'okusoba. Nava Tanzania ne nyingira Kenya. Lwaki temukoppa polisi za Kenya zeekozesa ku musolo? Bannayuganda bava ne basuubula e Kenya ne baleeta ebintu ne babiweera omusolo ate ne babifunako. Lwaki ffe abatusuubulako okuva e Congo okuva e Tanzania abaali batusuubulako lwaki baagenda? Kubanga omusolo gwayitirira tebakyasobola kusuubula bintu wano ne babitwala ewaabwe ne babifunako amagoba. Kati ebintu ebyo byonna byetaaga okuddamu okutunulamu. Ekirala kwe kuyiwa ebintu okwasukka mu bondi zonna. Nkuwadde parking list eriko engatto. Nkulaze ne package bwe nazipakinze. Naye zonna n'ozisumula ne muzirinnya zigenda okuddamu mu kontina nga tezikyawera. E Kenya bakusolooza okusinziira ky'owaddeyo ku mpapula. Kubanga nze ndi wamu n'abantu abaagala okuwa omusolo nange njagala okuwa omusolo kuba bwe tutaawe musolo tujja kufuna ebintu bingi nnyo abazungu bye batukakaatikako nga tusobola kuyimirizaawo nsi yaffe. Naye nammwe kennyini abatusolooza mubeere benkanya. Ekirala muteekeewo okusonyiwa nti omuntu bw'aba alemereddwa mumusonyiwe addemu akole asasule omusolo. Eyaliko pulezidenti wa America Trump bwe yafuna obuzibu mu kampuni ze gavumenti yamusonyiwa omusolo. Gavumenti yamusonyiwa omusolo. Bwe yamala omusonyiwa omusolo yaddamu n'akola n'afuna amagoba n'asasula omusolo. Lwaki wano tekiriiwo? Kubanga amakampuni mangi gagudde. Ekirala nga maliriza mugenda ne muwa mu regulating license mu mawanga gonna Tanzania Kenya bakikola nti importer tateekeddwa kutuula kuliraana ono atunda akamu. Kubanga omuntu yaguze wuwo n'akusuubulako ate gwe kennyini omutaddeko edduuka Abachina bye bakola wansi. n'abamakampuni agakola ebintu wano ge bagamba ate n'ekirala mugoberere nnyo amakampuni ge mugamba nti gakola ebintu wano nga gabiimpotinga kubanze guno omulimu nguluddemu balimba nti bayimpotinga nga baleeta biwedde okukola ku ngulo ne basaasaanyako busaasaanya gwaleese ebiwedde okukola ne bakuggyako omusolo omuyitirivu nga n'oli gw'ofaanaganya abireese ate naye tebamuggyeko kyekisudde abantu baffe wammanga wateekwa okubaawo obwenkanya. Nze Sulaimaani Matovu nga Chairman Nagenda Chairman waffe ow'Akasiita Uganda.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Webale nnyo webalire ddala. Let me have a microphone here. That's the last one, and then we get some responses. Madam Sarah Chilangat, you'll be responding to some of the domestic tax issues therein. Mr. Abel, I think you have some customs issues. Mr. Kagwa will be doing a wrap-up. Ebintu bingi bimwogedde bikwataganya ne policy ate nga abatulungamya mu nsonga ezo weebali awo tujja kubanga tusobola okuzingazinga. Tweyanziza nnyo okuteesa ndowooza ekyokuyiga kyo weekiri ku njuyi zombi kuffe abaddukanya omusolo ate nammwe abaguwa.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum assalam warahmatullahi.
Yes, my name is Kwebi Hamzamil, Public Relations, Kampala Cadres Advocacy Forum, CAFO, an organization that takes the traders, that leads the traders in arcades of Kampala. Well, first of all, we as CAFO want to recognize the good work that URA has done. We want to recognize the good relationship that you've really put there. We've realized the old URA some other times whereby there was a lot of fear. But this time around, you go to URA, they almost want to give you their seats. This is so good. At least I've realized this. And the fear, the phobia that we had has gone out. However, the taxpayers and URA have done what it takes. Where money goes in the coffers and those that divides it into areas of their interest, they should do it with caution. For sure, we as taxpayers, there are some areas we are not realizing the value of our money. Well, I was realizing the new number plate, digital number plate. It forced me to go into research of this digital number plate. In Kenya, it is 3,050, which is equivalent to 27 USA dollar. In Uganda, it is 710,000, which is almost equivalent to $200. And we are living in the East African community. In Kenya, they gave them only 18 months to transform from the other old number plate to the new one. In Uganda, they've given us 1 year. But now, why is ours very expensive in the East African community? This is the likelihood that you're likely to get the hiccups. Number one, you're going to disorganize the transport system that propels economic growth. The reality is, if he's a teacher, a primary teacher who has tried his level best to have a car that helps him to go to school, is likely to save 2 months' salary to get to the new number plate. If he's a nurse, then it's 2 months something. It cannot be more than a driving license. It's impossible. We as Ugandans and as CAFO, we are realizing this thing is really injustice. Which company is Kenya using for a thing to be $12 to $27? I'm leaving that to the Minister of Finance. You did not consult us enough as Ugandan. 710,000 Ugandan shilling is a lot of money. $200 when the neighbor is only using $27. Another thing, you see, we are in import substitution. We want value addition. Buy Uganda, build Uganda. But the policies should favor that. There is something we are realizing as CAFO, that people are interested in having multi-international companies operate here in the value addition more than the Ugandans. The investment space has been taken by foreigners. This is so bad. But I want to assure you, People with a lot of money, people earning a lot of money in Uganda, the legislatures, they are not good investors in value addition. These people you see that the president is putting on his program of presidential skill initiative, these are people that have come back to start something. I want to give you an example. UNBS, Uganda National Bureau of Standards. One brand, when I talk about one brand, for a small or micro product is 500,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, parish model is giving 100 million for a parish. Now, a parish that would have 1,000 people. And this is a graduate who has not got job and he has decided to go into value addition. He has borrowed 200,000. And then the UNBS wants 500,000 for product. Now that means the policies are so funny. Here a graduate is saying, no, mi njagala kola juice, njagala kola bzigo. But because the policy is not favoring, he leaves a fugitive. He goes in Ichikubo nange muntundileko bwange. He goes here and all that. We as couple, we feel this is injustice. If you realize somebody is in value addition as a Ugandan, you need to nurture him. This person is a factory. This person is, like by the time you start making one box of juice, that means you are not making alone. You are helping a farmer. You are employing 2 people already. You are already somebody that is employing Ugandan. Something should be done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, one thing. Boss Amsira Munange.
Make it very short, less than a minute.
Now, still on import substitution.
Less than a minute.
Less than a minute. On import substitution. I want to assure you, Ugandans have a record of making their own jobs. And these jobs is where you are a calm and government plans to see how they tax them. It is on record. Before Ugandans, before the government of Uganda had factories, invite all those international kind of foreign investors here, importers, we were depending on import duties. That's very true. But because I think you've got a lot of foreign investors who are employing a lot of Ugandans, paying pay as you earn and all that. Yes, it is a good thing, by the way. Now, the importers are now not looked at. They are losing their money every other day. Somebody has borrowed the money, is on the plane, is in Dubai. By the time he comes here, the values are not favorable. At the end of the day, he's losing money. Can we have a method of probably sensitizing the importers that they can also either get attached to our things that are being produced here, or they become value additional themselves? Not other than, not whereby like you shock them with a lot of, kind of policies that have drained them. Somebody who was bringing 10 containers is now a Leta Migugu. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much. We'll have some responses, ladies and gentlemen, and also be able to save on time. Could we have a microphone to Madam Sarah Chilengat? Madam Sarah, I know Oluganda luo chintu chidogo, so I'm hoping you can respond to what you've had. But as you do so, you just listen to this. There's some of these things that have come in. Somebody is saying as well that reduce payee rates. Every country is doing this. If URA will reduce payee, this will increase number of registrations of tin. Somebody also says that before amending the Income Tax and VAT Act, is there a way that you can come up with one initial amount on the income tax and VAT payable per year or per month so that people can avoid penalties? So somebody is mixing income tax and VAT tax because they are recommending one rate for both of them. Madam Sarah, please shoot away.
Thank you so much, our esteemed taxpayers, for being very patient and waiting up to this time. Just to summarize, maybe for any that I have not picked, I will ask my boss, Mr. Kagwa, to pick some. He's more fluent in Luganda. I picked one where somebody was saying what causes businesses to fail. What I wanted to say here is that tax cannot be a cause of business failure. Actually, tax enhances business, because you will note that if you are really bidding for serious business, they will even ask you for a tax clearance certificate, and they will ask you if you are registered for VAT. They will ask you if you issue e-freeze invoices. All these are ingredients of formalization of business, and it's really what can help you to grow. Of course, there are various causes of business failures, including lack of record keeping, your ability to track your transactions, to track your expenses, and really be able to understand whether you are in business or the business is eating up on your capital and subsequently to run out. But from a tax law perspective, we just want to tax profits. And out of the profits, government is requesting only for 30%, the 70% is yours. So profits would mean that we allow you all the expenses, because someone was saying expenses are very high and we cannot get any profits to be taxed. If the expenses erode all the profits, then URA will have nothing to tax. So based on that, really, but again, the expenses must be legitimate expenses. Today, before I came here, I was looking at the financials of one of our taxpayers. And in the balance sheet, I was seeing him introducing in the second year, introducing related party loan of 21 billion. And I was wondering, 21 billion is coming from a director or a shareholder? How can that be? So it's also important to have a proper account and keep your books of accounts, because this is what informs our taxation. Supported. And once they are supported, we really have no reason to deny you giving you those expenses. That's why we are saying, if you use e-receipts, we will not be asking for those expenses, for the validity of those expenses. For example, if you are registered for VAT, what is an expense to you will be income to the other. So you really won't have to ask all those questions. And then on the issue of the pay rates, that question has come over and over, and we are aware of it. It's something that we will need to work together with the Ministry of Finance to see if this can be considered next financial year. But we also need to do some bit of research here and there to see the impact of the movement of these pay rates on revenue collection. But I will ask my colleague, Mr. Kagwa, to also comment on it. And then one rate for VAT. Now, VAT is an indirect tax. Pay as you earn is a direct tax on income. For payee, if you do not earn any income, there is nothing we shall tax. But VAT is a consumption tax, and the rate is at 18%. So the two are two different regimes and administered by two different tax laws. So we may not combine the two. Thank you so much. I submit. I don't know where Bossa is.
Mwebale nnyo ebibuuzo byammwe, manyi tukoye naye bibadde bibiri ebya customs. Ekisooka aba-enforcement bamaze okumuta ate ne baddamu ne bamukwata ate nga ffe abamulirizinze. Twakaanyiza n'abasuubuzi tukwatagana ne kasiita ennaku zino. Bw'oba oli interested mu container y'omuntu gisange weeri, oba eri mu bondi mugende mumale bye mukola, bweba tugiririzinze gende lumu. Ekyo kyo twakimaze nakyo kubanga kitawaanya. Tetulaba lwaki olinda efulume ate oddemu kutawaanya. That is not facilitation. Bw'oba intelligence oba ina information oba bayinforma bireete nga container ekyali weeri. Ekirala kibadde ku valuation. Valuation nakyo nga tukwatagana ne Kasita leadership twakanyiza nga tonakyusa eyo database tuyite fe aba sector batuli b'amasanyalaze tuyite tuli bangoye tuyite olina ab'emmotoka tuyite mu mitendera egyo tetugamba ntugenda kukyusa database naye twagala tubeere sure nti bye mutaddemu mu database tukanyiza nabyo nti tusobola era kati kye twatandise nga Commissioner General ng'atugaidinga ku ekyo sendowooza engeri gye tutandise tujja kutambula bulungi ku nsonga ezo ebbiri mwebale nnyo.
Tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzege Mwami Kagumire ne Madam Sarah. Okay, tukyalinayo
okuddibwamu kuno ngenda kukola mu bwangu. Mwami Kagwa ajja kumaliriza kubanga yakiikiridde PS abadde wano. Waliwo ekireeteddwa Siyatini ekyokugamba nti nno tukola projects nga tezisomeddwa. Ekigambo ekyo kituufu kibaddewo emabega eri nenjagala okulongoosaamu nti nno Ministry ya Finance yasazeewo okuva omwaka guno gwe tubaddemu okugenda mu maaso teri project ejja kukolebwa naddala ku projects eza gavumenti nga tesomeddwa bulungi. Kyentegeeza n'okusomebwa kola feasibility study ne tukakasa nti nno buli kimu ekikwatagana ne project eyo kimanyiddwa. Omwo mulimu environmental, economic viability, counterpart funding n'okudeclaring emisoso gyonna n'emisolo gyonna egigenda ku project, fiscal commitment and contingent liabilities. So ekyo kyo kyasaliddwawo mbadde njala nkitangaze kiggwe tewajja kubawo project zonna zikolebwa nga ekyo tekikoleddwa. Ekirala kye mbadde njagala okuyitamu ssebo bubonzikiriza Mwami Kagwa n'alongoosa ekintu kiri kye tubaddeko ekya budget. Mukola mutya budget nga sente muzijja mu transport, muzijja mu business ne mutateeka sente zonna eyo. Mbadde njagala kulongoosaamu bwe nti mu Mwami Kagwa oyo amaloboozi ago agatuusa kubanga yo mulimu gwe gwa kunoonya sente musolo atambuze ebyenfuna by'eggwanga. Naye bw'atandika okuleeta ensonga ezo ebaayo omuntu agamba naye ndi wa transport, omukyala wange gwe nalese awaka bw'anaaba agenda mu maternity mu ddwaliro gy'alaze nga teriyo ddagala, nze naavuga motoka eyo ereeta ebintu, njagala waka wabeereyo ki eddwaliro, nze ngende mu Mbaasa Mwami Sulaiman nga manyiba omukyala ajja genda mu ddwaliro afune ki eddagala azaale. N'olwekyo transport mu bwayo ekola kinene nnyo mu economy. Ne transport ogirinkinga mu health, ogirinkinga mu security, ogirinkinga ku power, ogirinkinga ku water. All of those sectors deserve an input from these revenues that we collect to make sure that we sustain them. So ekintu kya budget tuyinza kitunuulira ng'okyawudde ku birala. Bwe buvunaanyizibwa bw'abakulu abo bali mu finance nange gye ntuula. Bwe batunuulira byonna ne bagamba kiriwo ekisupporting ekirala. Omuntu aleese emigugu okuva mu Mbaasa bw'onootuuka mu kkubo ne bakuwamba ne bakunyakulako emigugu kuba security tekola, onooba osuubula. So relationship eyo tuleme kugyerabira. So okubalansinga eryato eryo is important for us as we budget for the country. Ekirala kye mbadde njagala okuleesa embyayo kino mbadde manyi omukulu agenda kukyogerako naye mmanyi bajja kukyogerako. Trust. Buli lwenkebera amawulire oba nendaba TV ogenda kulaba omukulu wa URA ng'ayimiridde ku nsawo ya lumonde, wakati mu lumonde nga mulimu ki sigala. Ogenda okulaba ate omugugu omulala gwe badikiralinze ng'omugugu gw'engoye nga munda mulimu ekintu ekirala ekikukusibwa. Mwami Sulaiman kyayogedde kituufu. Mbu kituufu kyandibadde nti no bakosa scanner zaabwe ne balaba nti no parking list ogibawadde bino byoleese. Baagala nabo babeesige. Naye ggwe nga munnaffe batugambye abakulu, naffe tuli mu ggwanga muno. Okoze eki okwesigibwa? So trust is not one-sided. Naffe balina okutwesiga nga naffe tubakola ki? Tubalaga nti no tugwanidde okwesigibwa. So bwe bayiwa container eyo olw'okuba experience ze bayiseemu zibadde nene nnyo ez'ebintu bino. So mbadde nsaba nga bwe tugambye mbwe entandikwa yeeno tukole ebintu nga tubikolera wamu nga tukwataganira wamu, weewaawo tusabe be tusaba nga nabo batukwatirawo nga naye naffe tukola kitugwanidde okukola. Bw'oba odiclearinga list eyo mu bujjuvu bwayo, toteekamu ate biri by'okukusizza by'otadde wansi ebitagwanidde kubeeramu. Ekisembayo local government mu revenue mobilization. Waliwo efforts ezikolebwa okuleeta local government on board. Babadde bakola ebintu ebimu nga bambi obutamanya naye etteeka lyayisibwa emabega eyo local government zigenze ziweebwa okwema to be self-sustaining. So olwo ebintu bye bakola ne tubawuutamu ssente. For example, most local governments will release land